who he is, but I bet you if you talk to most people outside, he's not like on a lot of people's radar
I
necessarily.
mean, I think only Macklin is really.
Well, but I don't even mean just as far as like Sharks are concerned. I mean in general. Like I think he's granted he's been on a bad team, but like if you talk to people outside here, my 2 cents, talking to my friends who are hockey fans who are outside of San Jose, they knew who Eklund was at the draft, and then they haven't heard a peep since. But that's because they're not watching at all. Why would they? And he doesn't get a lot of media attention. So, it's not like crazy surprising.
I feel like at the start, like through most of the season, it was Celebrity, Smith, and Eklund.
Here.
And from like end of season through draft, Eklund's name sort of dropped out of the rotation.
Well, I mean, his name was up a lot because of they were trying to work out extensions. But I don't think he gets as much attention for his skill and potential ceiling these days. But I think that'll change probably in the next season or two. Anyway, save it for the pod.
No.
We're number 2. Is 221 accurate, Ben? I never trusted it anymore.
It is correct.
All right.
As far as I know.
Okay. All right. I'm going to kick it off. Ready?
Wait.
I have kids chomping at the bit to play bubble hockey very aggressively. We just took on like 50 kids this morning.
Jesus. All right.
We live on like the one flat block in our area, so every kid in the summer. Let me know when you're good.
I'm good.
All right. Take a sip of water. All right. Hello and welcome to Circling the Cup podcast, episode number 221. It is one of what's probably our 2 off-season podcasts. That's right. It's the one you look forward to the most, other than the season wrap or the season preview or maybe any of those other ones in between. I'm not really sure, but we got a lot to cover because so far quite a bit has happened. I'm Alex. Here with me, as always, is the Honorable Ben. What's up, Ben?
Like Misa.
And of course, I've run out of ways to explain that you're in Sweden, Colin. So just from Sweden, Colin. Yeah, there you go. Simple. Listen,
how's the wall-to-wall sunlight, Colin?
Quite nice.
The sun never sets.
I prefer it to the darkness.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Well, that's a nice, metaphor for where we are with the Sharks, Colin.
Whoa.
Set that one up.
God damn it.
Listen, for those of you who forget, we don't do pods every week in the summer. We don't do pods every week in general these days just because it's harder and harder to schedule, and the Sharks haven't been worthy of it. But we tend to wait until there's some big stuff. We obviously just had the draft and free agency, and Greer has also said, air quote, that he's done, meaning he may or may not be, but probably is. So we're going to talk about what we've seen so far. And guys, where I'm going to start it is actually with 2 players who are not returning to the Sharks, both of whom I think are not necessarily surprises, but not surprises is the way I would put it. So let's get the smaller one off the plate first, and that is Romanov, our goaltender, who we saw bits and pieces of both within the AHL and the NHL. The Sharks have not brought him back. Now, let's talk about the bigger dog, which is Sharks legend Marc-Edouard Vlasic. So the Sharks decided to buy him out. Now, you may be saying, what's the big deal? It's not like he was a superstar anymore or playing a lot anyway. And I guess the only part about it that would maybe be a bit of a surprise was just that at that point in time, we knew the Sharks were going to have to spend a lot of money to get to the cap floor. So having his contract on the books for 1 more year, which is about what it wasn't necessarily, the worst thing in the world, especially with where we are in the rebuild. So them announcing the buyout, I think, was a little bit of a surprise to a lot of us who follow these things with the Sharks. Not problematic, mind you, But just surprising. That's the end of an era for him. Obviously, it kind of petered out, a bit towards the end there. I personally, I don't know how you guys felt. I actually thought the few times he was in the lineup, he was pretty all right, especially compared to how bad our defense was. Which is the other reason why I found it a little surprising. Not again that he's as capable as he was when he was a 20-year-old. Obviously, he's a lot older now, and injuries and other things have sort of stacked up. But I felt like if they had kind of gone into the season, and I think they could have used him more than they did last year, and it would have been fine. But not bothered by it. Do you guys have any take on this other than we salute you, Vlasic, for the good years?
Colin, you want to go first?
Yeah. You ready, Alex?
Go.
Oh boy.
Greer is Captain Tank again, and he was worried Vlasic could be too much of a leadership role on the defensive side, and therefore keep us in too many games. And he's like, no. I need another top 5.
The leadership role is actually something. That's some nice foreshadowing there, Colin. I don't know if you were doing that intentionally. I don't know if I want to give you enough credit to do that, but that has.
I do nothing intentionally.
But that is another reason why I guess to me that the timing was a little surprising, because the Sharks are very gung ho on this, and have been under Greer and even before Greer. The whole cliche NHL, you got to have a vet for leadership there. And Vlasic was a great defender when he was a good defender. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I always love when we get into the Tank Conspiracy cinematic universe in Colin's head.
Yes.
The general hockey cinematic universe in Colin's head is a place to live, everybody.
I just found this weird. We only saved $2.5 million against the cap, so that does partially alleviate your worry about the cap floor thing. And he didn't. We didn't have to do it.
I think they want, they wanted a contract spot open because they knew they weren't going to be using him moving forward, which I get. But again, you could have done that you could have just let him, eat the cap space this season and then done the same, let him walk next season.
Right.
It didn't seem like this was an urgent thing to do. And so I get where you're coming from, Ben, but that's what it was. It's basically look, we're trying to figure out who our defense is.
I wondered if also there was speculation, maybe he asked, right? He knew he wasn't going to get playing time here. He was never going to win a cup here. He had maybe dreams and aspirations that some, team out there that's closer might sign him, but they would never trade for him, and certainly wouldn't pick him up on waivers, right? Because that contract was awful. But I don't know, man. Whatever.
I mean, I don't really see anyone picking him up either.
No, they haven't.
Right. So that's where that was. So, okay, we're going to move on from that. Again, listen, Vlasic, for those of you who maybe came into the fandom a little bit later, Vlasic was a player I loved. I loved his nickname Pickles. When he was a shutdown defenseman, it was awesome. He was he was a key component of the Sharks being good for such a long time. So, I do feel bad. I feel like much like Couture, these are 10 years that just didn't end the way that we were hoping they would end, and are not as, ceremonial as you probably would have hoped for them leaving Teal. But I want to thank Vlasic again for all of the good times that he had with us as a Shark. He was definitely, going to remain one of the most memorable Sharks players. So super bummed to see him go in that regard. But I will say this, with Couture, done, and Vlasic done, the Sharks have now officially moved on for the most part. You could argue Goodrow's still hanging around there. Gregor's not, which is also interesting, but we weren't going to cover that because why would we? Instead, we are going to jump to the NHL draft. Now, the NHL draft, it's a thing. Sharks had the second pick. We knew that. The Islanders had won the lottery. The Sharks had announced that WWE's Bailey was going to do the pick, which my kids like WWE, so I thought that was kind of funny, but I was curious how many Sharks players knew who she was. Maybe a lot. I have no idea. But going into the draft, there was a lot of Sharks news. All of a sudden, there was a lot of smoke about whether or not they were going to draft Michael Misa. Now, one thing to point out about this draft, not as strong a draft as the last few drafts. The last few drafts were actually pretty crazy in terms of how many potential, franchise or generational players existed. That isn't necessarily common. This draft a little more standard, but because of that, maybe felt like it was a little less pizzazzy. Now, part of that was also not super clear consensus from scouts over who, really top 5, top 10 were. Yes, there were players like Schaefer and Misa who were getting a lot of the lion's share of the attention. But this is one where it maybe wasn't as clear you're going to pick Celebrini number 1, period. Like even with the number 1 pick, you could have taken Misa over Schaefer. There are a lot of ways it could have fallen. So a lot of smoke around the Sharks maybe not picking Misa. At the end of the day, with their first pick, they chose Misa, and then Greer made it sound like, yeah, we were never not going to do that, guys. Even though, they were, I think, kind of playing with it a little bit just to see what kind of offers they could get. So Misa goes to the Sharks with their number 2 overall pick. This is a great pick. He has chemistry already with Cherney, which is awesome. He knows a lot of the players in the organization, either from playing against them or just, youth hockey. He's excited about being a San Jose Shark. And if you want to believe the Sharks organization's aspirations for Will Smith being a center, this kind of gives you that sort of 1, 2, 3 punch down the middle, assuming those players stay in that position. And I don't know if I necessarily would. So Michael Misa, I think this is a great pickup. This was the player I wanted if Schaefer wasn't going to be available. I'm assuming you guys feel the exact same way, yeah?
Yeah, of course. Like, hooray, we did the obvious thing.
Didn't blow it, right? Which is not necessarily a Sharks drafting trait.
I would just like to say a gigantic double middle finger to the Sharks organization for trolling everyone.
Yeah.
For the 4 days ahead of the draft and making me very afraid we were going to biff this pick. The sense of relief I felt when Michael Misa's name was called was palpable, but also not worth it, you assholes.
Yeah, it was definitely, I think they did that more just to, test the market and all that kind of stuff. But I will say, as a fan, going into that pick, I was way more, my anxiety was higher than it should have been.
Yeah.
Given the situation. And the second, his club was called, I was immediately like, oh, okay, I know where we are. Great. We didn't blow it. Now, one thing I do want to point out about that is immediately, the Sharks are talking with him. He's doing his, post-draft interviews. And immediately we get the whole, I want to make the Sharks right off the bat. I want to be a Shark like immediately next season. And I do think that is an interesting one to watch for. I'll get into the prospect scrimmage a little later. My thoughts on that, having seen that and seeing a couple of practices live. But, it's not necessarily, I know people see Celebrini last year and Bedard and, all that stuff. And they go, well, yeah, duh. No, not really. I mean, it's not super, super common for players. It's not uncommon, but just because a player is drafted first or second does not necessarily mean they're ready to hop directly into the NHL. So on the one hand, I'm super excited that he's got that motivation. On the other hand, it'll be interesting to see. So I think, my point for Sharks fans is let's wait till camp before we get overly hype on that being the scenario. But that's the pick. Moving on to their second pick, which was the 30th overall. So they had the 30th and the 33rd. So basically, hovering towards the end of the first round. One thing I'll say, guys, that I was surprised about, and I'm sure you probably were too, Sharks had a lot of draft capital this draft. We have a lot of draft capital next draft. I was personally expecting the Sharks to maybe be moving some of this draft capital to get, one of the larger pieces they need, like, the right defenseman in or something like that. They didn't. It was a pretty quiet draft in that regard. So with that 30th pick, they chose Josh Ravensbergen. Now, he is a goaltender. He was, going into the draft, the highest goaltending prospect according to all of the scouts. I don't mind this pick. I didn't see it coming at 30. I don't know that it needed to happen at 30. They obviously felt like it did. He's a big guy. He catches right, which is also a little bit different. But from my perspective, and just based off of the scouting reports, I hadn't watched him play a lot until obviously they had drafted him. And, if he develops right, and if Askarov can stay healthy, which is a kind of a question for me at least, then down the line, Sharks look pretty damn good in goal, assuming again that he develops. So we might have just found our number one and number two longer term there. Obviously not next season. What did you guys think about this pick?
Go for it, Ben. You'll have a better opinion than me.
I don't like first round goalie picks for one thing. It is, I think, as you say, they must have suspected somebody was going to grab him within the next few picks. They couldn't wait till 33 somehow. But otherwise, like, he's the goalie. We'll see.
What this pick told me at this,
they're worried about Askarov.
Well, to some extent, maybe, but I think for me, and based off of the move we had just talked about earlier, pre-Vlasic, what this tells me, drafting I'm with you. I typically wouldn't reach for a goaltender in the first round unless it was like lights out, and even then, I don't know that you need to. And even then, you had the 33rd pick, so unless you're worried someone's going to grab them, you can just wait. But what this tells me, and what I've really noticed about the Sharks last season and last couple of years, really. A little better with getting, Askarov in there, is that I don't think they necessarily trust their goaltending pipeline yet. Spear's a really good goaltending coach. We know that. But that's what this pick tells me is they're looking to try to shore up that so they don't have to worry about it and they can focus on other areas. And they felt like this was the pick that was going to get them. At least that's my read.
But goalie, okay. So on average, goalies take a while. Like defenders take longer than forwards. Goalies take longer than anybody, unless you get one of those special ones that manage to like make the jump fairly quick and hold it. The team needs to start turning the corner, like showing playoff potential in not next season, obviously, but the season after. And I just don't see how this pick feeds into this team, like actually building around Celebrini as Celebrini signing his next contract.
Here's how it does. All the scouts who rated him highly project him to be about 3 to 4 years. So you got to look at Askarov and his age. So by the time Askarov is hitting his late 20s, by the time Celebrini is really like in his mid 20s, Ravensburgen would likely be coming in as the backup. Again, assuming all things go to plan, he develops, at that rate, which you don't know. But that's, I think, what they're looking at. I think they see Askarov and they figure we'll get backup or tandem that will be strong enough. Askarov will be strong enough to hopefully carry. And so it's not, they don't think they're in a position where taking 3 to 4 years to get this guy potentially up is going to be derailing that side, especially if they're looking at actually strengthening their defense, which we know is a focal point. So I think that's why they're looking at it. I know as a Sharks fan, like you look at it and you're like, I want to back up now, which they got, which we'll talk to. But that's, I think, Colin, why they're looking at, or the way they're looking at it is that 3 to 4 years out. And then by that point, Askarov is likely goalies, to your point, they develop slower, they mature later. So he's probably prime-ish in there. And then you have a really strong, young backup behind him. It's not the worst scenario in the world. But again, why the 30th? They unless they have a tip that like someone's going to grab them and they don't see another, goaltender, worthy of the draft, it just seems a little high.
But then you're wondering, let's say he's working out, but he's just not working out in the right way at the right time. It's like he's going to be a few years longer. It's just not quite a good fit with us. Is his trade capital more valuable than somebody else who might have picked up at that same spot?
I mean, I mean, you can't predict that really. I mean, right now, he was a very high goaltending prospect on pretty much every scout's list. And so I think you're kind of banking that will continue, and you're banking that he is going to develop or pan out, in which case, yeah, he would have that capital if you needed to move him. But obviously, if he doesn't develop, then you don't. I mean, again, that's kind of a hard one to bank on, right? You got to pick. Ideally, you're picking the best player you can. Sharks felt like they needed, a better goaltending prospect. This was the best prospect for that this draft. Again, I think that's why they took that swing. But let's talk about the next swing. Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, it's like we pass up on a right-handed D. We pass up.
Yes.
Well, we pass up on a right-handed D, and then
we'll get there. Yeah,
that's going to be a theme of the next pick too.
Yeah. Well, that's and Colin, again, like I don't disagree. Like I was looking, the second they got Misa, my attention was immediately towards defense and right-handed defense specifically. So this draft was surprising with that because it's something they didn't really seem to want to address. Let's talk about that next swing though. 33, 3 picks later, they get Hao-Shi Wang. Yes, it reads Haoxi Simon Wang. It's not. That's not how you pronounce his name. If you weren't clear on that, so the big Wang jokes. I get it. I think it's kind of funny because we have big dick, and we had giant cock or big cock. I get it.
Big cock.
But just to be clear, it's a stretch to make that work. Now, speaking of stretches, this was an interesting pick because, Ben, you've talked about it year over year whenever we do these draft podcasts. Draft picks are in general, they're lottery picks. Yes, the odds are better in that first 5 position, maybe first 10 position. Then after that, there's a pretty steep fall off. Again, Sharks fans looking for more of a sure thing defenseman. This prospect is interesting. I can tell you in person, again, being at the prospect scrimmage and some practices, dude is freaking huge on skates. He feels like Chara on skates. I mean, he's a big boy. He's 6'6". He's interesting because of the level of gamble and where they're doing it at how high a pick. Basically, his deal is this. He started hockey really late, like 4 or 5 years ago, late compared to a lot of these other draft picks who have been playing since they were like 6. For a guy who's 6'6", his skating, according to every scout, is elite. And getting to that level of skating is very difficult. Most hockey players don't necessarily hit that. So from the Sharks' perspective, their belief is that his skating ability, coupled with his work ethic, which is very, very, very strong when you hear him and other coaches talk about him, and his drive will be enough to make up for missing years and years of development that some of the other players have had. So if that happens to work out that way, and I'm not saying that it won't, I have no idea, then the Sharks may have gotten a real incredible defensive player. If it doesn't, though, if he can't make up that difference and get to that NHL level, quickly enough, I guess. I mean, again, D develops slower than forwards, as well. Then this will look like a very big miss, mainly because the Sharks really, really, really had a need for more of an air quote sure thing defenseman.
Well, not just that. This guy would have been available in the 5th round. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Like, nobody was going to pick Hao-Shi Wang in the 2nd round.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Sharks were hearing, but this guy, I mean, he's a you say lottery ticket. This is, if you...
I don't know, Ben. I don't know. I was thinking about this morning. I can't think of another draft pick, not in the Sharks organization, in general, that was this wild of a risk. Because, again, you're banking.
Yeah.
You're basically looking at him and going, look, you can skate.
We can fix him.
You want it. You don't have the rest of the skills, but we're going to make that up. Yeah. And I'm not saying I don't know. I'm not saying they can. I have no idea. They haven't shown me anything in their development program on any of the Sharks administrations that would make me feel super confident that they're super strong at development.
Miracle. They're betting on a miracle, right?
Yeah.
Like, his skating is elite for a guy his size. That's awesome. He works really hard. Great. That doesn't equal will make the NHL. right? Like,
Are they going to teach him to
for
shoot
anybody-
right-handed? Like,
No,
Well,
you're thinking that because he's got this like unshakable work ethic and because he already has the
Yeah.
skating down that he can make up the difference. That's what
Right.
they're betting on. He can make up the difference and they can help him do it.
Yes. And
to
the
take
chances
what
of
spot
that,
though?
well, yeah, that's a good
Like-
question too.
Yeah. I mean, I
I
don't
mean,
think, look, the Sharks don't actually, let's be real. Even with the additions that we'll get to this offseason, the Sharks don't have a defense yet. They don't have a defense yet. So I don't necessarily know that they're looking at it quite that way, Colin. But I think either way, the gamble's still there. If it pays off, a lot of scouts will tell you, because a lot of scouts were high on him. They will tell you if this pays off, this will be a steal. And the Sharks will be, in an amazing place. But again, this is a hard swing. So on the one hand, I don't mind the Sharks taking swings, especially, later. On the other hand, again, like the Sharks used to do this under Doug Wilson with Tim Burke, right? Tim Burke's still there. They would do this thing where like there'd be as close to a sure thing or a higher, odds lottery ticket in front of them.
Yeah.
And they would grab the guy, a full round back, 2 rounds back. So like what threw me off about this one was Misa was the obvious pick. Good job. You didn't mess that up. Ravensburgen, not a bad pick.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And made sense for what they need. Houshi, that's like, again, do they need a really good defenseman?
No.
Yes. Do they need to take a swing to get to that?
No.
Blake
Fiddler was right there. So the guy they should have taken at 33, a right-handed defenseman who projects to not be a star necessarily, but an NHLer, was right there.
Yep.
And he's 6'4", so it's not like he would have been tiny, but and he fits a much more projectable need, right? Like, this organization is struggling to find people to put on the right-hand side without having guys have to be offhand, which you kind of don't want. Not that, okay, look, you pick Fiddler this year. It's not like he's going to be in the NHL lineup tomorrow. He's got 2 or 3 years, probably at least. But still, at least you're both picking a guy who has the right talent level for the fucking pick, and then also the right sort of need. And of course, there were forwards who you could have taken here who also would have been better bets. The only thing I will say is, the only thing that kind of excuses this pick at 33 is that they got a guy with the next pick that could have also been picked at 33 more rightfully. So
I also want to point out too, I don't think this is how the Sharks draft per se, but from the well, I can't say it isn't, because they did this with Ozzy, marketing pick. Not a bad pick there, which I don't think is what they were doing. But I will say this: at the prospect scrimmage, when they were calling names, and people were clapping and cheering, this dude got damn near a standing ovation. So, I'm rooting for him. Obviously, I would love to see it work out. It's a great story if it does work out and all that kind of stuff. It's just one of those ones where I don't think the Sharks have taken a swing quite like this before.
No.
And I don't know that there's been, again, looking back, I can't think of another player where, this is like out of a movie where it's like, oh, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me, I was watching Moneyball not too long ago. And you remember when they go over and they see, what's his face's character, Chris Pratt's character.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, he's like, I've never played first base.
It's incredibly hard.
Yeah. But Billy Beane is like, Brad Pitt is like super confident. Oh, don't worry, we have it. That's what this
that's
is.
Scott Hatterberg, by the way.
Hatterberg, yes.
Yeah, but that's like my question though, because like what do you teach him to be? Being like a second or third pairing shutdown lefty. Like, defenders have to be able to like shoot, like generate scoring chances these days. Like the true, like pure, I only shut down. You better be.
I think that's a problem with the modern NHL, like in scouting too. And like you see this with the fans where they go, Brent Burns is an elite defender. No, Brent Burns is an elite offensive threat, or was an elite offensive threat. Defensively, I'm not saying he's terrible, but he can be a liability, right? And you look at like Dickinson as a really good example. Again, you can see this in the prospect scrimmage. Dickinson, really good. I do not doubt that at all. I did not hate that pick when they made it. I understood why they made it. They were watching him like crazy because they were watching his teammate. But if he comes up this year, I can tell you what's going to happen right now. He's very offensive minded, very offensive minded. He's probably going to put up some decent offensive stats, and he will probably get caught pinching left and right, especially this first season until he, adjusts. So I don't necessarily think every defenseman needs to have like crazy offensive power. I think they need to be able to help with zone entries. I think they need to be able to help keep the puck in the zone. But this idea that like a defender sucks because he doesn't have 20 goals is kind of like this weird modern thinking that I just like. We're just making everyone forwards at all times.
I'm not saying he needs to be Makar.
Right.
I'm saying, like, if you look at his past stats, the one thing he can't do is score. Like the one, so he has no shot.
Yeah.
And like, a shot is anybody can shoot the puck. Very few people can shoot the puck at the NHL level, and it matters. And so, okay, you then turn him into a shutdown specialist, but he better be an amazing passer.
Well, exactly.
Just like you have to have a really clear idea where you're putting this person into the lineup, and can't you free agency sign or trade for what he'd ultimately be anyways?
Maybe, but look at it this way. Look at it this way, Colin. Let's say Dickinson continues to be that, offensive defense. Let's say he turns into Burns or something like that, right? Having someone like Houshi be the other defenseman is not the worst thing in the world.
On the right side. Well, having a shutdown right-handed defender with Dickinson would be great.
Colin, let me just we need to set one rule here for fans to expect. It's two, but it's the same one basically. The Sharks seem to think that everyone who's left-handed can play left or right, and they also think that everyone who is a center can also play all forward positions. Once you've accepted that, this makes more sense. But go ahead. Sorry, Ben, you were going to say.
I love how the old schoolers and the new schoolers agree on the left thing.
If you fail at a center, you become a wing, and it's fine. And not all wingers could become centers, and that's why centers are more valuable.
Yeah.
But anyway, the thing I was going to say about Wang here and points in general is that points for defensemen matter. It doesn't have to be goals, but points do matter for projection of whether they will make the NHL or not. They matter, and he does not. Generate points, and that points to a fundamental problem that is going to probably hamper him ever turning into anything. Unless he plays this year and all of a sudden, he's made up 2 or 3 years of progress. But again,
these are big jumps. That's the thing too.
Exactly.
Jumps.
But I wanted to jump on the other thing you said, Alex, which conspiracy theory tank cinematic universe goes, okay, so this is a pick for the San Jose community. This is a pick if he turns out to try to turn China into Sharks territory. I can kind of, from a business perspective, rock all that.
But it has to work. Otherwise, you've got nothing.
Exactly. It has to work.
Yeah. And again, he's not enough of a sure thing for me to believe that was their main motivation. I think
I don't know, man.
I think not necessarily China business side. I'm sure that definitely pops in there a little bit. But I think for them, and again, this is just reading up on him. I read up on him heavily because he kind of came out of complete left field for me.
For everyone.
Went back, watched playing, listened to interviews. And I get it in the sense, and again, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I get it in the sense where look, sometimes I think we've all met people like this either in work or on teams where you just meet people who you can just see they have that want and that motivation to get to where they're going, whether or not they're ready to get there yet. And I think they see that in him. Now, again, I'm not saying that magically means that in it, he's going to do it, because these are big, big jumps. And I'll tell you right now, a foreshadowing prospect scrimmage, he looked like garbage to me. In practice, he didn't necessarily look much better. So I don't know. We got to move on to the. But you mentioned you foreshadowed a little bit again there, Ben, which is great. Cole McKinney at the 53rd overall. Now this is one
fucking great pick.
This is probably, as far as the Sharks are concerned, this is probably their steal again. If how she works out, then that was a steal too, technically. But yeah, Cole McKinney. Steele, this is someone who kind of fell back technically.
Yeah, a little.
Yeah, but I'm excited about him. I think this is a great pick. I don't really have a lot to say about it other than that. What do you guys do?
What I would add is, he gets a lot of that. Not only does he project to be, a potential NHL player, unlike how she, he gets a lot of, there's a lot of buzz around these same things that you're talking about with How She Wong is, smart kid, high motor, never quits, keeps getting better, alongside, actually, again, more importantly, being an appropriate second round pick. And that's kind of what I wanted to add.
Yeah, which is funny because then you get to this next one over here, Teddy Muchrin. And this is one where I looked at it and I was like, okay, interesting. And then I read a little further and I said, oh, I see. Eventually heading to Boston College. Greer has a lot of faith in the Boston. And as someone who's lived in Boston, I kind of get it. He's got a lot of faith in the Boston area, but he's also got a lot of faith in both the BU and the BC programs for developing players. So was this, it's not necessarily a bad pick, but is this the pick that I would have made? No, not really. And it's probably, other than How She, a little bit more of a reach based off of where he was. Colin, I don't know if you have any thoughts on some of these later picks, but if you do, butt in.
I mean, they make more sense. It's like you can sort of go, oh, well, kind of wish you went this way, but I get it. So they're more comfortable than 33.
Well, we're going to go to the next pick, whose name I can usually say, but when I'm reading it while trying to do any sort of podcast, I suddenly have to slow down. Magomedsultanov. Not as hard as it looks to spell. He gets drafted at the number 115th pick by the Sharks. Look, I think the joke here, which has been made time and time again, is that you put him next to Mukhamadullin and you're going to make Randy Hahn's head explode. Except Randy Hahn's better than that, and he's already on top of his game, guys. But that would be an annoying mouthful to have to get through. Look, he's a big guy. He's already playing full-grown men in Russia. No idea when or if he's going to come over. The Sharks obviously don't seem to be too concerned about that because they picked him. Not a bad pick, a pretty good pick overall, especially for where they're at. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on this one. If not, I'm going to start breezing through these. So you guys just let me know if you want me to stop the bus.
This guy I actually had no knowledge of. That's pretty much all I have to say about this pick.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, a lot of post reading on my behalf, at least. Sharks 124th pick would grab Zach Sharp. People are saying he's a nice find in the 4th round. He's a defenseman. I do know he had a good year. Just looking at his stats, I think he was at Western Michigan, one of those two. Sorry, it's not a team I watch a lot of when I'm watching college hockey.
Yes.
But there you go. Now he's a left-handed defenseman as well. So hey, Sharks still on that hunt for that righty. The Sharks then they would go on to pick 150th. It was Max. I don't even. Do you remember how to say his last name?
Eyes. I think it's Eyes.
Yeah. There you go. Not a bad pick again, according to scouts. Big guy. Sharks are looking to get big here. It's kind of a trend this draft where a lot of their guys are kind of, above the 6 feet range already at a young age. And then with their last pick, they would grab Richard Gallant, who is a future Harvard University forward. Hello, Boston. Greer sees you. He did not forget about you.
To be fair, this is a great fucking pick at that place.
Yeah,
at that spot. His only challenge is size. If he was a little bit bigger, he'd have been a 4th or 5th rounder probably. So, looking forward to the Sharks I don't know, never using him, despite the fact that they drafted him and then trading him probably 6 years from now.
Yeah, so I think coming out of this draft, here's my 2 cents, and I want to get your guys, consensus on this too. I think the Sharks had a pretty good draft overall. The Houshi is an interesting one. It's a big swing again, but I like Ravensburg, and I'm fine with Misa. Like, they didn't screw it up. I think they got a lot of good players in this draft. A lot of players who scouts just in general were very high on, and not just their own. So I think the Sharks had a pretty decent draft overall.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about what that looks like in the prospect scrimmage next. But how did you guys feel about this draft for the Sharks?
Oh, well, we got Misa, which was the bar of don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they didn't fuck it up.
Woo!
But they might have signaled that they are less rushed to be in the playoffs than or others thought they were.
This is going to be a theme here, Colin, and I agree. And I think the thing I forgot to mention too about this draft is, even though I thought it was a good draft, I didn't come out of it feeling like and I still haven't this offseason, to be perfectly honest with you, and we'll get there, addressed, some of their more obvious needs. And I thought they were going to do that again, either via, making the right pick in an area, or flipping some of this or something to kind of get a more NHL player. But Ben, your take on it?
I mean, I think it was a very good draft for where they were drafting, right? Like, Misa was absolutely 100% the correct guy at number 2. And I think Misa basically projects to be a second Will Smith, right? Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's quite a core to have 3 centers as good as Celebrini, Smith, and Misa all probably will become. I mean, that's enviable. If you just look around, you see other teams in the same place as the Sharks fucking up these picks when they have a chance to get that, third key guy. So that's good. I ultimately end up being okay with the Ravensburgen pick. I think that, I worry about Askarov's health. I think the organization is worried about his health. I think having another high talent, high ceiling, let's say, goalie in the pipeline is great. Mm-hmm.
Doesn't hurt.
Yeah, no, it's great, because you never know. I think Askarov, from a talent perspective, is the Sharks guy of the future, but he does seem to be injury prone, and that's worrisome. The Houshi pick, whatever. I mean, second rounders, you only have a 33% chance of playing 100 games in the NHL anyway. So if they fucked one of these, whatever. McKinney is a great pick. Mutrin, bleh. The 4th rounders, bleh. But I like the Gallant pick a lot. So, if you get Misa, you win. You get an A.
Yeah,
that's my summary.
That is the one thing. That is the one thing I know. So one of my friends had asked me about that, who follows the Sharks loosely, and he's like, everyone gave them like an A+, and I'm like, well, like 90% of that was weighted towards getting Misa. Like, to be perfectly clear, had they not picked Misa, I don't think they had an A.
No.
Even if they had even if they had picked a good person, I think that's a lot of the way. So that's a great point.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the rumor was they were going to go for Frondell at second, and
right.
I think when that rumor came out, you saw a lot of Sharks fans frothing at the mouth about how the Sharks were going to fuck things up by taking Frondell. Frondell was going to go third, right? So they're all like, if you're going to go for Frondell, just trade back. It's like, okay, but there's one team that you could trade back to, and they're going to just bet on you picking Misa.
Yeah,
they would be happy with happy with Misa. So it's like, the Shark fans who were all aggro about that, I don't think were thinking things through. And then the Sharks did the right things, and Frondell went to Chicago. So
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I agree and I disagree. I mean, if you knew you weren't going to, and you could at least shake out another draft pick out of it, fine. You know what I mean? Like, I would prefer they not pick the obvious guy and at least get a little something in return for not doing that.
But you have to have willing partners.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
All of these times where people are like, why didn't we just trade back? Blah, blah. It's like,
I don't think Chicago was desperate enough for me.
No, they definitely weren't. And I don't think anybody else was desperate enough, to trade up to a place where the Sharks were sure they would get the alternative guy, right?
Well,
And
it sounds like enough teams were inquiring about the trade, but
sure.
I think what we've seen with the Sharks so far are Greer, and I think this is one of the areas where it's very hard to predict Greer, is that clearly he evaluates players differently than I think we do, and I think he certainly values things in a way we don't. You see this with his trading, where sometimes we're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you? And we'll get to that. It's like, what? Like, what? Why is this so convoluted? Oh, how come that player didn't move when it seems like we really should have moved him? How come we got this player for this? It's it's a little all over the map. So the vibe I got in the post in the media days, and I've actually liked how often they've been doing media days, and I've liked Brody's coverage as well, because he's actually getting amazing stuff. We're understanding more about these players we never have been able to before. But I get the sense that they were never seriously considering trading. They were obviously listening.
I don't
just
think
to
so
see what's
either.
out there.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think they were trolling the league, but I'm more responding to the unrealistic expectations that there's always a trade partner to that matches up with your need, and it's just kind of dumb.
Well, we'll talk to the counter of that in a little bit here. Let's talk about the prospect scrimmage in the rookie camp. So, I know you guys aren't local anymore. I'm still local. I had the opportunity to check out a bit of practice and went to the prospect scrimmage. And listen, the rookie training camp, I don't necessarily think it's something you should be judging too heavily, which will seem ironic in a second. But if, especially since a lot of these guys are new, they have the jitters coming in. It's like their first day, in at sort of like the air quote pro level. There are a couple of guys who are veterans of it. Guys like Musty and Polkamp obviously have been to some of these. But here's the way I look at it, and you can take it or leave it. When I go to these, and I try to go to them every year just because I enjoy them, I'm looking for things that really, really, really jump out, and then I'm taking that with a grain of salt. So, for example, if you're kind of like in the middle of the pack and steady, not really something I'm paying too much attention to. I'm kind of looking for things that are really poking on either end of the spectrum. I can't tell you this. It was a terrific crowd at the prospect scrimmage. You can definitely feel the excitement from Sharks fans, in terms of like watching these kids. 4 years ago, you wouldn't have seen this stuff at all. And I think, probably starting last year, most specifically, I think fans here are very, very invested in these young guys. I think they're savvier than they've ever been in that regard, because we never had to pay attention to prospects, really. So it was really exciting. I will say this. There were players that were on my list to watch. The two biggest ones were Dickinson. Three. Well, four. I'll throw. There's a bunch. You know what?
Okay.
I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this. Yeah, Chernyshov,
Musty,
Dickinson. Musty. Yeah. So yeah. And well, and obviously Wong, because I wanted to see like what the hype was about.
Yeah.
The prospect scrimmage, unusual format. It was great seeing, Wingles didn't really get a lion's share of attention for obvious reasons, because they announced Hall of Famer Joe Thornton, which, by the way, his Hall of Fame call was probably the most Thornton-esque, hilarious thing ever.
Well deserved. I love that.
Yep.
I love it.
No, yeah, exactly. Marlo was one of the coaches there. Ricci was one of the coaches there. And again, the format was a little bit weird, and it's pretty sloppy hockey overall. Loudest cheers I mentioned before. People were excited about Misa. People were very excited for Wong, and of course Landon Marlowe, who's not realistically going to make the team at all. Got a loud cheer for just for that obvious sort of.
Can I say something? A mea culpa.
Yeah.
Sort of like I I was sort of ragging on the whole idea that Landon Marlowe was part of the dev camp. I actually really liked how he looked on the ice.
He's fast. He's fast, and he skates like his dad. I mean, like you could see that right away. And again, I know a lot of people have that take, and fair, but I will also point out the Sharks almost always do this. They usually have like an ex-junior Shark or someone else who wasn't necessarily drafted, and they give like a local look. It's not taken very seriously. I think this time it got attention mostly because of the last name there, and all of that. And fair, I get it, but they always do this, and whatever. As far as the game itself, okay, here's what I'm going to tell you guys. I am very, very, very disappointed that Polkamp is going to Denver. I thought last year's prospect scrimmage, he looked great. I thought this year he looked effing great. That is a kid. I know he doesn't get the lion's share of attention right now with our prospects, but let me tell you something. That guy's zone entries are phenomenal.
Yep.
His skating is great. His shot is fast as F. Like fast and accurate, and he's exciting to watch. He's always smiling. That guy, I think, is hopefully going to be one of our main defensive players in the future. And I would really, really like to see him, like, either in the AHL or if before we get to UFA, before we had slots filled, he's one of those guys that I would almost look at like fast tracking. I think he's got the skill set to be there. He looked great. He was the best player on the ice as far as I was concerned. Beyond that, Dickinson looked good. He looked pretty much like how I was describing him earlier, which is a very offensive-minded defenseman. I think he's going to do really well in that role. I do think he was a good pickup. I'm expecting them to give him the Will Smith treatment this year, just given he's not really, he's above the talent level of his previous league to the point where there's no point in putting him there, but you can't really do anything else with him. So, and the Sharks need to have someone up anyway. And so so I'm expecting him to come up and probably go through that kind of like on-off training regimen. Misa, let's talk about Misa for a second. Misa looked good to me. He looked exponentially better whenever Chernyshov was on the ice, because obviously they have a rhythm together. Do I personally, and again, small sample size prospect scrimmage, if I were just watching that, would I think he's in the NHL next year? No, probably a year, probably at least a year out, or two maybe at most. Now, what that tells me is I want to see what he looks like after he's had the summer to bulk up. I want to see what he looks like, as he goes through, training camp and all of that stuff. I think that's, really for him, that will determine whether it's, this year or next year. I do think he has the skill set. I'm very excited about him. So please do not read that as a knock. It's just, I see all the this season.
Yeah.
In this small sample size, I didn't see that personally.
I think the Sharks are in a bind with Misa because he's so vocal about wanting to get to the NHL. And the other best case scenario for him is to go to college.
Right.
Yep.
To me, right. To play against slightly older guys. He dominated junior. He doesn't need to do that again. And he's going to, because he's so eager to play at the NHL level, it's not like he can, do a 9-game tryout and then go to college. That's not how the college system in the United States works. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that he could get the Will Smith treatment this year. Personally, I think he absolutely could. I think we'd be better.
I would think that, Ben, if you weren't already going to have to do that with Dickinson.
Who cares? We're in tank zone. This is the tank cinematic universe. Embrace the tank. Anyway, I just think that, look, if there's an upside to this, right? If Misa does sort of force the team to keep him at the NHL level, that also probably means Chernyshov plays at the NHL level. And I think he absolutely needs to be at the NHL level.
Well, yeah. Well, so let me move on to him. Of the two of them, I felt that Chernyshov was the more ready one. I agree. I don't think he's going to come in and be lights out. So I would temper that expectation, but I do think he's ready. And I think I would be excited to see that. I would much rather have him there than anywhere else. Ravensburg, and I took a look at, I thought he looked fine. The goaltenders, it was tougher to get a good look at him specifically. It was just not a lot of playing time because they cycle those guys. Yeah. Two other guys. Those were the guys that stood out to me, period. And again, I was surprised by Leandro Marlowe's speed in skating as well. I wasn't really, I wasn't watching him. I wasn't there to watch him specifically. Two players I was disappointed in. Hauschy, and I'll tell you why. I was excited to see him. I was excited to see what the hype was about. And what I saw was exactly what I was afraid of, which is he was regularly out of position. He was regularly skating into his teammates. He was regularly kind of getting beaten on defensive assignments. He didn't seem to have the on ice IQ at the level that he was drafted. Again, was his skating good? He had a couple of moments where he had flashes of brilliance with his skating, so I could kind of see that, but he seemed way out to me. And that's when I sort of started to, I don't want to say sour necessarily, but that's when the excitement left my soul. Was kind of watching him in that game. Now, again, thrown in and tough and maybe not the best representation. It was the same in practice though. So, I think he's if he's an NHL player, he's way further out than I think they're thinking. And that bummed me out. The other one, and this disappoints me to say, because I've been rooting for him for forever. I wasn't all that impressed with Quentin Musty in the practice I saw or that prospect scrimmage. And, it just, that level, for whatever reason, I didn't see that level of compete that I was hoping to see from him. It just seemed a little bit, I don't want to say he's lazy, but as far as some of the jump the other players were having, he didn't seem to have that buzz to it. So I don't know what's going to happen with him. I think, he's another one of those ones where training camp is really going to make a really big difference. There are a number of players, I think, at that prospect scrimmage where we're going to get a better look at training camp, and that will really determine kind of what's going on. I think Musty's one of those guys, he had a weird situation last season. And so I'm there, we've seen it. We'll talk about Bordeleau and Gushchin in just a second here, right? But we've seen it before, where sometimes we see something and we're excited, and then the org doesn't, and then development goes wherever it's going to go. I don't know where his is going to go. I still am excited for him. I just was hoping he would show up like Polkamp showed up to me. So, and I didn't see that.
My thing with Musty is, and I didn't see practice. Obviously, you did. In the game, I felt like the biggest issue with Musty is he didn't have a good center. Chernyshov had Misa with him. Musty feels like a guy who needs to have somebody setting him up, right?
Yeah.
Which there's nothing wrong with that. For a late first rounder. But I don't think he's NHL ready. That guy, I'm certain, is not NHL ready. I think that guy definitely does need to have some AHL time. So
yeah,
and that's fine.
Yeah, totally.
He's got defensive stuff to work out, in a way that Chernyshov does not. Right?
Yeah,
Chernyshov is a more complete player where he is, and again, hell yeah, baby.
Yeah. No, I agree. I was just, and again,
I feel you on that.
Don't misread my disappointment. When I say disappointed, I mean, I was excited to see, had higher hopes, and then I saw him, and it was ho hum, and I was like, I've kind of rooted.
I'm not critical. No, I kind of agree with you. I wished I saw more from him, but also I just want to emphasize, this prospect scrimmage format is fucking whack.
Oh yeah. Again, small.
It's so hard to take anything from 4-on-4 and 3-on-3. How things are. Right?
No, I know. But again, I saw Polkamp last year, thought he looked great, and I thought he looked better this year. So that's what I was looking for. I think
it's easier for the defensemen, because nothing changes for them at 4-on-4 and 3-on-3. They still have a D partner. You know what I mean?
Fair. Yeah.
But that said, I'm totally with you. I think Polkamp should be given an NHL opportunity today, but the dumb little bastard wants to go win a national championship. So.
I know.
Shit.
Hey, so let's move on real quick. RFA and UFAs here. So we're gonna do this in a little bit of a weird way here, just because I can't remember the order of operations. But basically, two semi surprises for me, and I'm sure you guys too. The Sharks offer qualifying offers to Bordeleau and Gushchin, two guys who they seem not quite sure what to do with. Now, but that instantly signaled to me, and probably you guys as well, is, oh well, they're not actually going to be here. They're going to qualify them and then likely flip them, and that's exactly what they did with Bordeleau. They moved Bordeleau for Shane Bowers. At the Devils, two guys who seem like they probably just need a different organization. I'm not super high on Shane Bowers personally. Bortolo, it was pretty clear that like they were going to move on from him. So again, I was actually a little surprised they qualified, but I'm glad they did at least got something back in return. Gushchin, I'm still waiting for that shoe to drop in the same way. Hasn't happened. So maybe it's not. Maybe he gets to training camp and maybe they give him like another real shot. They seem to have they've had him on a short leash so far. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on either of these two or the trade to the Devils at all.
I mean, go ahead, Colin. Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's nice to get something. I feel like this is another instance where it's like, okay, what's the actual plan for people who seem to have value? So like, nice to get something back. Seemed like, why now?
And to me, this is an AHL for AHL trade.
Yeah,
like, both organizations are trading guys that they see as AHL guys, and whatever.
No, yeah, you're basically it's a there may be upside when he gets to our program, and if not, he's an AHL player. Like it's not offensive or anything at all.
Yeah,
it's just you know.
I think New Jersey got the better player. I
do too, but clearly our organization doesn't feel like it. And again, that's why I'm kind of interested to see what happens with Gushchin, this offseason, whether he's still here or how they really evaluate him in a training camp, because he's a guy who's continuously earned his way up and just really hasn't gotten a good shot at it. So free agency opened up, and I know what you're thinking. We got Mitch Marner, right? No, the CBA advanced faster than you would have expected. The cap went up. That kind of created a scenario where teams had more money than maybe we were hoping they would, which meant, to your point earlier, Colin, that despite Greer saying multiple times that he was looking at this being the first building off season, actually feels a little bit more like a purgatory offseason than anything. Sharks did not get Marner. He was done in a sign and trade ahead of free agency. They really didn't get any of the big names that people were maybe hoping they would get or attempt to get. Not saying they didn't attempt. I'm sure they asked. But in general, this just ended up not really being the market. So it looks like, that timetable is maybe pushed out a year, which is not a bad thing and probably realistic anyway. But I know a lot of us were kind of, hoping we would make a splash, especially since we had money to burn because we had to get up to the floor. So what do the Sharks actually do here? Well, they get their backup goaltender this season, which is I'm going to blow his name, and I even have
Nedeljkovic.
Yeah, Nedeljkovic. I practiced that so freaking much to just blow it in that moment. But yeah,
I don't even know how you pronounce it, so I just guessed.
Right. So they I'll I have it open right here. Nedeljkovic. Okay. There you go. Close enough. So they grabbed him for a 2028 third round pick from the Penguins. One thing I will say about all the Sharks pickups this offseason, shrug, because they're all on like pretty much expiring contracts or were signed to like 1-year contracts. So none of the stuff that they're doing is like super ties them up, which is good. It basically means next offseason is the offseason fans were hoping this offseason would be. Another thing that they did was they claimed Nick Leddy off waivers. This one's interesting because there's been smoke recently that Leddy potentially blocked a trade to the Sharks. In which case,
this old hat.
In which case, Greer likes to pull a Goodrow, as I will now name that move, which is player does not want to come here, and we go, ha, we got you anyway.
We're gonna call it Greer in another year. It's gonna be called the Greer move.
Yeah, it's a thing he does. I don't know how else to put it there. We also got why am I not? Oh, the soundings. Here we go. Was in the wrong area. Hold on, let me filter these. You guys, if you guys remember everyone off top of your head, please.
All right.
Go.
So we got
don't get to the two big ones. Go ahead.
Okay. Philip Kurashev.
Yes.
Adam Gaudette. Right.
Yep.
I don't know who you consider the big ones out of the remaining three. But,
we got Klingberg as well.
Klingberg,
we got
Orlov.
Orlov, I think out of those guys is probably the one that I'm the most excited about, just because.
And Skinner.
No, that was one of the bigger ones. Only because not really.
You have those.
I know who you're
Skinner's
really
fine.
excited
Skinner's
about. I
fine.
know who you're really excited about. Ryan Reeves.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, well, okay. Well, so let's get to some of the other ones.
So which do you want to do first?
Let's do Reeves. I was going to do Reeves and Skinner last.
Okay,
so
sorry.
let's go do the other ones.
Yeah.
Of those, again, these are all short deals. They're not terrible to me. You know, they're fine. They're situations where, you know, we either have guys like Orlov, for example, previously good defenseman, still good, but just, you know, but just on his way down. But like, honestly, the Sharks needed to get a defenseman and they got better than what they had. So that to me is great. I'm actually pretty excited to kind of see him in teal. Khrushchev. Oh, good.
I was just gonna say, Orlov is this year's Wallman, basically. He's here until the trade deadline. He's here to you know, show he can still play and then be flipped. So
yeah, but also, you know, again, like you look at our defense last year, woof, you know, and
once Wallman left, it was trash fire. I agree.
I mean, it was a trash fire going into the season, and we knew that. So, you know, he's even if he is gone, you know, at the trade deadline, upgrade to me.
Agree.
You mentioned Gaudette. Fine shrug. I mean, you know, we're overloaded with these sort of like fourth line players. So like this is
last year.
This is the area where I found a little frustrated. And if I go into my Colin Tank MCU thing, you know,
to be fair, the Sharks did not qualify a whole bunch of dead weight, or let a whole bunch of dead weight go as well. So
agree. The only thing,
a lot of those fourth liners that we were worried they might want to keep around, who were expiring contracts, are gone.
Yes, right? Correct. So again, they didn't screw that part up this time around, which was good. Now, that being said, I'm not saying they screwed it up with UFAs or anything, but I am saying I was looking forward to some of these guys having pathways, and they continue to do what they're doing in the name of fostering competition, which is filling spots that they may not necessarily have needed to fill, where other areas are maybe not getting filled the way we would like to see.
I totally agree, but what I would say about that is, of the forwards that they brought in, so Gaudette, Khrushchev, and Skinner, these are all upgrades.
Yes,
over the third and fourth liners the Sharks had last year. Gaudette, maybe the least upgradey. Khrushchev is this year's. Let's see if he can get back to 50-point play. Right,
we got to have at least one rehabilitation player.
But this one actually, like, he scored 50 points 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's actual talent there. I actually really like that signing.
Yeah.
Gaudette, whatever you need that. That's a Greer kind of guy. And Skinner, I love that pickup. I love it because
I do too.
He's now second line to Foley. So go.
Skinner is a player who the Sharks have been rumored to be after for years. Like every trade deadline, Skinner as a possibility pops up. So it just seems like they found him later than they wanted to. Look, he's not the fastest skater in the world.
No.
Yeah, he can't skate as well as he used to, but I agree with you. And yeah, he is second line to Foley. And I think that's great because, quite frankly, we didn't get Granny back, or anything else in that position. So,
which I'm fine with, by the way. Like Granlund, I think, is sort of a mirage. So anyway,
I would have been fine either way. I would have been fine either way with it, as long as it was a short contract.
Again, I was glad to see a California team overspend for him, basically, and not be the Sharks.
Yeah, listen. If anyone's upset, if anyone's upset, almost all these guys are 1-year contracts. I think one or two are like 2-year. So really,
2 more years. Orlov's 2 years, but
and Orlov is the one you would take for 2 years.
Totally.
So and we're at the floor, so no problem. Fine, totally fine. Again, was hoping that we would see more of an advancement. Every single one of these pickups to me are basically telling me this is a holdover year.
Yeah,
and we're pushing for more development.
Baby.
And again, I guess that's if I had to say I was disappointed in one area, It's that knowing that this is a purgatory year and that next year will be a probably very big splash. I would have hoped to be able to see more youth coming up and developing. Maybe they're going to do that. I just, history shows that they don't seem to do it, or they have them on short leash. So
we have to get rid of Ferraro. That is the person who is holding up.
Greer, you know what though? I think they've been trying to, and Greer.
I think they've been trying to as well.
Greer just said the other day when he was asked, and I'm not saying I believe it completely, but he said that I think we're more or less done. Now that doesn't mean that anything can't happen. It doesn't mean that he's not still going to take a trade. He made that clear, but it does seem like this is kind of the roster we're going into camp with, barring something popping up. So, I feel you. I guess the one sliver of hope with Ferraro is that, and I don't think they have addressed things well enough to make this the case. I think part of the problem with Ferraro is that I don't think he's particularly great personally, but also I think they've been putting him in the wrong role to begin with, and that's not helping. So maybe if they deploy him,
forward.
We'll just not like, look, he's not the first pairing. Okay. Like, don't be giving him 20 minutes a night. That's not the player he is. You're not doing him or yourself any favors unless you're part of the tank MCU. So there you go. Okay. One more big one.
All right.
This one has fans surprisingly way more divided than I would have thought, but maybe I just see things wrong, Ben. I don't know. You tell me. They flip Thrun for Ryan Reaves. Now, the funny thing about this is Ryan Reaves breaks the trade at a signing in Las Vegas. Like, people are lined up to get his thing, and he breaks it. I will give you a couple of things here. First, he has a really good reputation off the ice. Cool. He seems genuinely excited to be here, even though, our history with him. Cool. I think he'll be, fun in the locker room in that way. Cool. Do I think he is the face puncher he was in the 2018, 2019 era? Not at all. Not even close. No. Granted, Toronto had zero need for him. So, it's not like they were exactly going to put him in that position. He's playing like 7 minutes a night. Thrun is interesting. So you're basically trading a 24-year-old defenseman who, let's be real, hasn't been lights out.
He was not very good last year. No.
For granted, the Sharks defense was atrocious, and the Sharks were not good. For a 38-year-old face puncher who no longer punches faces. Now, here's my complaint about this trade. One, we don't need Ryan Reaves. I don't believe that he's the player that they think he is anymore. And I'm not a fan of, having that. I get it. People watch Florida. They see the size. They see the hitting, the intensity. An old NHL thing of needing to have someone protect the youth. I get all that. I don't think he's going to be capable of doing that. I think he's going to try, which is great because we have him, but I don't think that's necessary, and I don't think he's capable of doing it anymore. Again, younger Ryan Reaves might be a different story. He can't really skate much anymore. He's just the skill and talent isn't there, so he's kind of in a spot. Where I have an issue with this specifically is not only do we not have that need, not only is it eating a spot from a younger player potentially, but Thrun. Regardless of whether you think Thrun is the worst in the NHL, which I don't believe, or you think that he's done, and you want to push aside the fact that the Sharks were bad in general, not helping and not deploying their defensive in any intelligent way, I would say that you're talking about a guy who, when we got him, was sought after. I'm not saying he still is, but he certainly was at the time. We got him with the promise of playing him near right away, which we did. That might not have actually been right for him as a player or his development, especially given the state of our franchise. I'm not sure. But I find it really hard to believe that a guy that young, Reaves, what he is, and which direction he's heading. There is no upside. There is no growth. Thrun, however, is 24. So even if you think, he wasn't very good last year, and even if you want to ignore the fact that the team as a whole finished last, and you don't want to factor that into maybe why he wasn't looking good, I'd still have to think that a team would see enough upside to do a little better than Ryan Reaves. So that's where I'm underwhelmed with this trade. The Sharks need defense. One. Is he it? I don't know. Probably not. But, again, they didn't handle that well last year at all, and it was reflected across all the defensemen. But I just, Reaves is a return. It's nothing personal against the player. It's just not the return I would have gone after. I don't know. How do you guys feel about this trade?
0 cents. Like to me, this is, hey Reevesy, go do one fight so we can get a bunch of people buying tickets. So maybe they think you'll do it again. And it just,
I saw the argument. One of the arguments that popped up, Ben, was the argument that you popped up earlier, which is sometimes there isn't a market for, maybe that is the best trade out there. I think my issue is I find that hard to believe. I do think the Sharks were looking for someone who could be physical because we know that is a thing that, Greer sees and values to an extent. And we don't necessarily have right now on the current roster. And so I do think that I don't think it was a matter of they couldn't get anything else for him. I think they saw Reaves and were like, okay, we do need that gritensity, Ben. And here's a guy that has it. And so that's why this trade makes sense. Because again, you couldn't get Reaves isn't even really worth a draft pick to me.
No.
And you could have gotten, again, he's 20. Again, if you don't like him, he's 24. There's still technically room to develop and grow to some extent in another program. If you can't convince the team that, especially with how teams were looking at him before, I don't know. That just seems weird to me.
I think that the Sharks were not going to be playing Thrun this year. I think that they have enough left-handed D that they want to play, which includes, I think, Dickinson and Mukmadulin.
Yep.
And so they had option of trading him or waive him, and maybe another team claims him. I don't know if he was waiver eligible even, so I'd have to look that up. I don't know what they. I think they were hoping to get. Honestly, I think they went to Toronto and said, "Hey, we have some left-hand D available, and we want Ryan Reaves."
I agree.
And they were like, Father Greer was like, Ferraro, right? Ferraro? Would you like Ferraro? And there's Maple Leafs were like, we'll take.
Oh no! You think they air quote downgraded?
That makes it even worse. That makes all this even worse. That they were like, hey, we got Ryan Reaves. Take anything you like, hoping they're going to take the thing you want to get rid of.
You want Mario Ferraro, right?
Let me tell you how that probably really went down, because you're probably not too far off, Ben. I think they were probably fishing for more using Ferraro, because I think the organization, much like some of the fans, view him way too highly. I think that's part of why he hasn't moved. I don't think it's that there isn't a market for him. You can't tell me that there isn't a team that, at least on that third pairing, wouldn't bite. But I think the Sharks are probably trying to sell him as a first or second pairing, because they marketed him that way to us for forever. Yeah. Future Captain Ferraro.
Isn't that a terminal problem for a GM then, that he's unable to not only get what is maybe realistic value, but find that person willing to give a little bit too much for something that they shouldn't otherwise? Because all the trades so far felt very justified on the back end, justified on the we needed the roster slot, we needed the space, we needed to get away from the thing we traded away. Well, now we're kind of needing to bring things back, and it's just not happening the way you'd want it to.
This is where, and again, I mentioned it earlier, but this is where I still struggle to understand the organization. I don't mean this in an overly negative way. I mean, I still haven't figured it out for myself. I can't tell how they evaluate players and where they're putting them, because sometimes it makes perfect sense, and I think absolutely, and other times it's a head scratcher, right? So I look at Gushin as an example of one where I go, why is his leash so short? He's proven at the AHL level that that he's earned more of a chance, and they have him on the shortest leash ever. Ferraro or even Thrun last year, you can look at it going in the other direction. So, and again, you see it in some of these trades where it takes 15 players to get that trade done. You could.
Well, let me illustrate the schizophrenia in its most succinct way possible, right? So one day we trade Henry Thun for Ryan Reeves, and we're all like, what the fuck? Why do they still think that you have to have a face puncher in the lineup when everything's... Well, first of all, he's not a face puncher anymore. He had one fight last year. Second of all, he played 18 games, 7 minutes.
Well, the argument is that's why it doesn't look like he's a face puncher, because he played 18 games or however many games, and he had 7 minutes a game, so he didn't have time to punch faces.
But the team evaluated him to be a liability. That's why they didn't play him. Anyway, that aside, next day they signed Jeff Skinner.
Yeah,
really smart move. And this is not the first time that they've had moves like this. I mean, Hauschie and then Cole McKinney. It feels to me like there are two different groups inside the organization arguing for different requirements, and Greer is just on that one, and okay, fine on that one, and so it's you get your chocolate in your peanut butter, but it tastes like garbage.
Yeah. Well, listen, that concludes the offseason here, guys. 3 stars of the offseason. Who you giving them to? Colin. I knew Ben was going to sigh.
Oh, I'm gonna.
Ben hates the one hockey tradition we carry over from actual hockey.
I'm giving all. Oh, you boys ready to be cranky?
Oh,
I'm giving all my stars to Vegas for trying to take on Florida.
I can tell you who's getting a negative star for me, the NHL, because that draft format was horrible. First of all, having a live draft where the prospect goes into turns his back towards you and then goes into a private room makes even if you were going to do that live, why you'd have them to go into a secluded room. That whole thing was just garbage.
It was garbage. The production was garbage.
Yeah,
the teams want it. And this is going to be the way things are.
I think the teams are wrong. I think it is boring.
The NFL has done it like this for a generation. So whatever.
If you want to make the draft must-see TV, which is what the NHL is trying. They want you. They're trying to make it a big deal. I will say this. Then what the GMs want is at odds with that. That's what I would point out.
But they also stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen. They're not going to make the NHL draft a big...
You don't think having celebrity cameos that are on an obvious delay and sometimes really stilted and awkward because they didn't coordinate with each other, so one person comes out and has a whole skit ready to go, and the other person's like, oh shit, was I supposed to know what I was going to say in advance?
I know there was a Venn diagram of fans that care both about the Sharks and Bailey. I also know that the outside of that Venn diagram that doesn't overlap is far larger than the Venn diagram section. So
that's why the Sphere draft was probably
Sphere draft was pretty cool.
Perfect.
But you're never gonna get that again because the teams want to be at home. So to me, it's a production problem to be solved.
Yeah, but
you're stuck.
Hold on. Can I just throw one more thing out there though?
Sure.
Do you know what bothered me the most about this draft? And then I'll get to my stars. What bothered me the most about this draft wasn't that it wasn't as entertaining as it could have been. Wasn't that there weren't as many trades because people weren't in the same room as, may have materialized. What actually legitimately bothered me was that this is a big moment for these kids.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of saw how uneven it was. The GMs couldn't even bother to be in town to shake your hand and take you out to dinner. There were technical glitches everywhere. It was awkward. The Ducks prospect got to go to Disneyland randomly. Michael Misa gets to go back to the fucking hotel by himself. It's just
No, like I said, there are clear problems with this format of the draft. I think many of them are fixable problems.
It's like a
I
it's like
think
a
that
high school
Bettman,
or college graduation where the
but
principal doesn't show up.
I think Bettman tried to sabotage this because he wants what you want. I think that they put together the shittiest production they could to be like, see, we told you it would suck, and the teams were like, why don't you just be better, assholes?
I just felt bad for the kids,
Me
man.
too.
Like
Except the Queen.
When they can't even talk to the GM because there's something wrong with the feed. Like, come on, man. This is the one time they get this.
I just have to say this as a parent when these movies came out. My favorite thing about McQueen going to Disneyland is he took the number of Lightning McQueen for his sweater.
Yep.
Which is fucking awesome.
All right, so anyway. my 3 stars. My third star is going to go to. I hadn't really thought about this. I'm gonna give my third star to the announcer, the ring announcer, the normal ring announcer at SAP Center, who was there for the prospect scrimmage, because he was cracking jokes, and it was hilarious over the microphone. I don't know if that came through on the feed, but he was screwing around and having a field day, and it was a lot of fun to watch. It was a great environment. My second star, for obvious reasons, is going to be Michael Misa. I know, why not the first star? Because again, I'm so hot on Polkamp. That guy, I hope he pans out at the NHL level, because again, it's a jump. But I'll tell you what, Misa, I'm absolutely stoked about. I think he's going to be great. I have no concerns about him being an NHL player at all. Again, do I think it's this season? Camp will determine that. But Polkamp is one who I don't think fans are talking about enough. Also, sorry, just to throw in before I go to you, Ben, we didn't mention this, but the Sharks did sign Eklund to an extension, a shorter extension, but that's also because the cap's going to be jumping. So you'll probably see quite a bit of that. Your 3 stars, Ben.
So first quote for everybody: Alex is hot for Pol.
I'm hot for Pol.
Yeah.
Big Wong. We got big. See, but now that I know, you're supposed to pronounce it Wong. It kind of ruins a Big Wang. But otherwise, it's a Big Wang and Big Dick. I told my kids are not allowed to, they're young, use dirty words, but we do make exceptions for nicknames when they know. And so my boys, when they found out, they read it and they're like, Dad, is our defense going to be Big Dick and Big Wang? And I was like, yep, yeah, it is.
All right. So my 3 stars are: my third star goes to Anton Frondel for being the 3rd pick in the NHL draft. My second star goes to Michael Misa for being the 2nd pick in the NHL draft. And my first star goes to Matthew Schaefer for being the 1st pick in the NHL draft. Thank you. I'm done.
Look at that. You didn't blow your picks. You picked the best player available at every single one.
That's right, baby.
Ben, why are you not an NHL GM? You'd be better than most of them right then and there.
Well, you're not wrong for a lot of other reasons.
Listen, that concludes our middle of the offseason podcast. Unless there's some crazy trade that pops up, we'll probably swing back around to check in during training camp, and of course, we will be back next season, and we'll see how regular we are. Maybe if the Sharks are better, we'll be better about that. You can check us out by subscribing to this podcast on the Apple Podcast app, so you can rate it 5 stars if you like it, or just be honest, but do it 5 stars still. But 5 stars, but then write your criticism so it really confuses people. You see those movie reviews,
sad, Alex.
and it's like you see those reviews online, and it's like 0 stars, but the review's glowing, and you're like, did you click the wrong? Did you not understand how the star part worked? You clicked the wrong button. What's going on here? Android people, figure it out. Or, of course, you can find this on Spotify and probably other podcast places for all I know. I don't know. Ben handles that these days. I got that responsibility taken away. You can check us out on the web at circlingthecup.com. You can check us out on Facebook, but I can't remember the login. I'm working on it. Don't worry, people. You would think, why don't you just do that forgot password thing? Because it was a junk email address whose password I also forgot. So we'll figure it out. And of course, you can check Ben out at one of the 50 news. I don't even know what the trend of the week for tweeting is, Ben. What is it these days? Is it Blue Sky? Is it?
No. I mean, I still unfortunately mostly am posting when I'm posting on Twitter. I do have the Blue Sky account, but
It's just too much to deal with, folks.
It's far smaller communities, so I don't worry about it as much.
We started this podcast, like 10 years ago?
Probably.
Yeah, so we're old now, so we can't learn the technologies. Come on.
We're on Friendster.
Yeah, I still got my MySpace, baby. You can also hit up our Discord where we like to chat with people. We have it's a small group. It's fun. We like talking to all y'all. And of course, you can always write in questions. We will do our best to answer them. And yes, thanks for typing Alex is hot for poll in the live feed. Ben, really?
I think we need to get T-shirts now for Circling the Cup that say "Hot for Poll."
I will wear it. So I would have worn that anyway. Anyway, guys, that concludes. It was great talking to you as always. Say bye-bye.
Bye.
Come on, Colin.
Hot for Poll.
Come on, Colin.
Hot for Poll.
Can't Misa the poll.
Bye-bye.
All
right, guys. I got like 50 kids trying to get to the bubble hockey machine in here.
All right, have fun.